Losing my mind here today. Am I ready? So much to do tonight. Like the whole day has been like on. Trying to get relaxed before we start baking. I mean, galettes are we're doing savory and sweet tonight. I've been rhubarbed up. It's so exciting. Yes, all the prep. Can you see behind me? I mean, I've got frangipane. We've got rhubarb. I roasted some. I got a lot going on. Here's my list too. So we have a lot to do. I'm psyched. Everybody ready to bake? Ooh, sometimes if I'm just doing one recipe, it's so much easier, but this is going to be a lot. So I'm going to try to keep it together, try to keep the list, keep myself straight. There we go. It is 6 o'clock. We are the PoP Baking Club, and I'm here with all you PoPers. I'm so glad to see you. I've got the oven already started. We're going to go in reverse tonight. I'm actually going to assemble things that are pre-made to a certain point and get them in the oven, and then I'm going to make a galette and show you. All right, how is everybody? For those of you who don't know, maybe you've stumbled upon this and you're like, what the heck? My kitchen is looking like this. I've got a lot of stuff set up. I'm a certified executive baker who is teaching here on TikTok. I taught at the college level for over 12 years. And then COVID came and I was like, I want to do it. I love TikTok, so here I am. This is some of my mise for my savory galette. I'm going to be making a galette, and actually it's sort of a breakfast galette I'm going to put eggs on it at the end to cook on the end. Hopefully it'll be really, really pretty, but I prepped a bunch of veg. And then I have a sweet one, which is made with rhubarb that Dave picked up at the farmer's market. I roasted some. I've got some raw that I chopped that I'm going to make into a filling, and then I'll just kind of make some different samples. And what else? And the entire time that I'm doing this, I try to bring it all together and talk about the ingredients, ingredient function, and how to work in the kitchen. So I try to model best behaviors in the kitchen, and also make you understand that I'm not really giving you recipes as much as I'm trying to pass on the information that I have, or the info that I wish I'd had when I was self-taught, in order to solve problems and be able to troubleshoot in the kitchen a little bit better. And I think that everything comes down to having an intention in the kitchen, and the intention for this right now is that I have set aside time to just talk about galettes. Everybody voted on it last week, and that's where we are. We're doing a savory galette, and I have sausage, and I grilled and cooked some leeks and potatoes and asparagus and breakfast sausage, and then I'll put the eggs on at the end of baking, so it'll be kind of a breakfast savory thing, and then some sweet stuff. I also have extra dough that I'm going to be using to make hand pies or what do you call them? Which I love. Pop-Tarts. I used to love Pop-Tarts. But they're one of the few things that if I rely on it as a breakfast, I'll bonk. Because it just doesn't have enough energy for me, knowing how I work on my feet. And I need a lot of energy, but I love them. And so we're going to make some Pop-Tarts too. And just so you know, the recipe that I am using for the galette dough is on my Linktree right now. Originally, I got the recipe during a stage I did at Floreal in Chicago when I was at the French pastry school. I staged for 6 months, and it's like a 10-kilo recipe. It's humongous. It's made in like a big 60-quart mixer. So I actually altered it so that you can use it in your home mixer. Mine's a 4.5-quart mixer. I don't have a big mixer. And it's basically like making a flaky dough. But it's kind of interesting because not only does it have cold butter, AP flour and salt, cold water and vinegar, just plain white vinegar, but it also has melted butter, which is kind of weird. So you're getting like a lot of fat and a lot of creaminess, but the flakiness is like off the charts. I don't have a I have a dishwasher. I've never used it. I hand wash everything so I can sanitize them. And I clean constantly. I clean constantly, and I use it as a way. I love cleaning in between, and for me, if I'm ready to end the day and go home, because we rent, and I rent right there, like where I live, I just like to kind of clean up and get everything done. It's a really good practice. Oh yeah, I mean, I moved to Chicago in 10th grade after my 9th grade year. from Detroit, and then I raised my kids in Milwaukee. So I'm like hardcore Great Lakes all the way. Love Chicago. Florial is one of the best bakeries in the world. And I love Sandra. If she's there, hi Sandra. She owns it and she's amazing. And she's got a lot of good stuff on YouTube. And her recipes are out of sight. And it's all foundational technique and very simple, straightforward stuff that's just done really elegantly. And she's also one of those chefs that shares everything she knows. Like I have several of her recipes. She doesn't gatekeep because I'm going to make the recipe differently than she is. And they have, you know, so much know-how. Like I could never do exactly what they do in the shop. But I'm sharing with you a recipe that's insanely amazing. So it's on my link tree. And I didn't do any notes on Substack this week, but I did post a video on TikTok and Substack. You can actually watch the video and see how the galettes are made, the dough. And if you have questions while I'm working, you can ask. Because right now what I'm going to do is actually put stuff together, get it in the oven, and then once I'm done, I'm going to make the galette dough. Because I made the galette dough yesterday and it's been resting and it's in my cooler. So that allows me to teach you a lot about it, kind of like pretend, all out of order, but like TV magic. Florial is one of the best bakeries in the country, and I would love to see Sandra. She's already got national attention, but she's just beautiful and she's smart and she's a complete badass. I've been there when she let a couple people go, and it was like a very quiet, serene firing. She's just incredible. So I can't say enough about her. I love Mindy Siegel. Every time I see her, I try to introduce myself and she says, I know who you are. I'm like, okay, because I've staged there and I would see her a lot, and it's been a while. Maybe she won't remember me, but whenever I try to reintroduce myself, she's always like, I know who you are. And she also yelled at me for standing in front of an oven once, so she's badass also. Yes, the quiche is amazing. Actually, the recipe that I have on my link tree that's for the galette dough, the scraps from the galette dough, they would make into their quiche. And I made it, but it's not good enough to post. I'm going to do a whole thing about it, but I'm going to take the scraps from today and I'm going to make a video on this dough, turning it into a quiche using Florial's dough. So just so you'll know, and I'm going to play with it and do what I learned there. Okay, so I'm going to do a quick fit check, get ready, get dressed, wash my hands, and then I'm going to start pulling things, and it's going to go kind of fast. And what ends up happening is I get a little bit lost in the work, but I'll try to stay on your questions. We're talking about galette dough. A galette is like a pie without something to support it. So instead of it going in a pie tin to hold it up, it's flat. You fill it, and then you crimp the edges to create a wall, and then you bake it. And it's a flaky dough. It should be very soft and lovely. I'm going to bake one using a pizza peel and a parchment right onto a baking stone, and the other I will do on a baking sheet so that you can see the different kinds. Yeah, this galette dough is a little bit different than a regular pie dough. And after we're all done or whenever you have time, go watch the video. I am going to demonstrate it as soon as I get all of these in the oven. This recipe, and it's not all, I never generalize. I never say all of anything. Every single recipe is different. So this particular recipe is large chunks of butter, AP flour, and then there's vinegar in there, which some people say helps relax the gluten and everything, kind of like with vodka and that sort of concept. But more than anything, it kind of adds flavor. And so there's white vinegar. And then what's really strange is there's melted butter. So everything is really, really cold. I have the butter in the freezer. That is so that I can use the melted butter. Because if you just added melted butter and try to make a flaky dough, you're going to get too much of a creamed flour. But if you think about the ingredients and what we're trying to do, first we're cutting in really cold, hard butter to the flour so it doesn't incorporate. When you cut in big pieces of butter, they get smaller and smaller and smaller, but they're all encapsulated in flour. When that butter goes in the oven and it's really cold and it starts to melt, it creates a space. When the water in the butter starts to make steam, it expands that space. So it's not creamed together and tight like a cake or a muffin or something like that. It's like these layers that create the flake. But to make it extra special, I think the vinegar is really nice, and I think the melted butter at the end, it's like it just throws in a little bit of creaminess when you've already kind of developed the sides of the butter that you have, because you don't keep going. So if you watch the video and what you'll see later, and it's probably gonna be an hour from now, I would say, before I mix the dough, large pieces of butter, like crazy big, and that is why you can use the scraps to make quiche dough, because I've protected the size of the butter and it's so delicately handled that when I re-roll it gently, I'm still going to have incredible flake. And the quiche on the corners, when you cut into that, will look like, not like a honeycomb structure, but it will look like the inside of a croissant. It will be layered and gorgeous, and you'll see the history of the dough on the inside of everything that I'm making. So it's really exciting. All right, so I gotta pull my hair back. I have to get my apron on and all that kind of stuff. It's starting to get dark. Let me pull my hair back real quick. Don't go away. I'm gonna pull my hair back and I'm gonna come back and get my apron on. I like my hair to be up and out because it is not good for the food, as we know, and I don't like necessarily doing it in the kitchen. Let me put this over here. I work out of a rented kitchen. I'm a certified executive pastry chef, but I really enjoy teaching, and that is how I got into this TikTok gig. I went to the eye doctor the other day, and I'm working on getting some contacts so I don't have to wear my glasses, because I find it really hard not to touch my glasses. And it's really important when you're working to develop good habits. That's what a practice of pastry is. If you have a bad habit of touching your face or your hair or anything that is not sanitary, you have to become aware of it. And actually, when I edit these videos, I see everything that I do, and it really helps me be more self-aware. But we want everything about us to be clean so that it signifies to people who buy our products or eat our food that we care and that sanitation is important, but it's for safety, and it's also when you build good practices and you work intentionally, you are respecting the food, the art of pastry, and you are engaging in something that's kind of bigger than we are. Because baking, anyone can do. But the difference between baking with intention and just baking is that you set aside the time to do what you're doing well, and then you do it again and again and again, and over time you get better. It's like a muscle. You're not building bad habits, you're building really good habits. I have short nails. I don't like nail polish or fake nails in the kitchen. I mean, obviously a lot of people have nails. I understand. I am talking professionally. And if you are taking money for your work, you're a cottage industry baker or anything, short nails that can't collect dirt. I don't have any rings on. I don't wear my wedding rings in the kitchen. No earrings. I pull my hair back. And I get it. I love to look cute, but I chose an industry where I get sweaty and I work hard, and even wearing makeup is sometimes, if you've got a long day in the kitchen, it's counterindicated. But I wear clothes that are fitting so that I don't get things caught in equipment. Anyway, we want to be safe. And then I have clogs on, and hopefully we won't get any hair in anybody's food, and my hands will be clean. So that's it. All right, enough about that. All right, I'm going to wash my hands and sanitize the countertop. I just use these wipes, but if I am working all day, I have a Sani bucket, and in the Sani bucket, I use test strips that I buy from Amazon, and I use bleach. That's it. My water is not so hot that it renders the bleach, inactive or whatever it does. But I just am doing this to show that, I cracked a lot of eggs today and things like that. And it's important to start at least the best you can clean. As a home cook, I'm not sure how to use nail polish and keep it out of my cooking 100%. As a home cook, I think it's okay. You aren't in a contract with people. When you take money from somebody, or you're working as a cottage baker or have a license, you've made a contract. And I think that you just do your best. If you're going to be doing a gigantic project, maybe take the nail polish off, but I just think that's impractical. I know people aren't going to do that. But if your nails are chipping, if there's a lot of dirt behind, just think about it. I don't know. But if you're taking money, it's a different thing. I really don't care what people do as home bakers, but as soon as they start taking money or making cakes for money, I don't want to see the hair down. I don't want to see a bunch of jewelry. And I will be honest, there are a lot of companies that I really like, but when they have chefs on who have nail polish and tons of jewelry and their hair down, I won't give them a like on their videos. And so I just can't support it. I want people in the industry to be really good role models. I'm gonna get out of the fridge some of the stuff that I need. I'm going to do the Savory Galette first. And I will show you what I have going on here, okay? Here's my dough. And, okay. So this is what I have, and I'm gonna put it back in the fridge. But these are my galette circles. And I'm just gonna take one out and put it on parchment. And I like to put the parchment between so they don't stick. But I need this to warm up just a tiny bit. I am going to roll it out just a little bit more. I always use a full Silpat that is upside down. I do this because it is the perfect size for me to work on. It kind of tells me that I'm in the range of a half sheet pan, which is what fits into my oven. But because this is coming out of the cooler, if I just leave it out, it's going to start to get a little condensation on it. I don't want it to be out that long, but I am gonna roll it a little bigger. So I'm going to put a little bit of flour on here, and this is bread flour. And you use bread flour instead of AP because there's less starch in the bread flour, so it doesn't absorb. This doesn't get absorbed, the flour. They just kind of leave each other alone. So I have one more. This will be for my sweet, and look at the butter. Can you believe that? Look, I mean, it's just insane. So I used a cake ring. It looks like this. So when I roll this out, and again, you can watch the video or I'm gonna demo it when I'm done. This is a cake ring that you just put onto a Silpat and pour cake in, and you can make a cake. I use it as a cutter and cut this. Now because I want this to be flaky, it's just like a biscuit. You don't cut it and twist it. You cut it down and then you use the Silpat to lift it up. So that is what I use to make this is a galette. This is the beginning of a galette. So this is the one I'm using for savory. And it doesn't seem very big, right? It's thick though. So I'm gonna make it a little thinner. And then later we have smaller. These will be like personal size galettes. Beautiful butter. And then these will be my hand pies. Will be like this. Take two sides, fill them with a little bit of stuff, crimp them, maybe make a little hole so that the steam can come out. And this will be my little Pop-Tart. And I have a couple different shapes that I'll be using later. And so that's it. I like to keep things simple. I have a lot of cutters, but I tend to stick with the basics. Circles, rectangular, and this is a little different, but it's long like a Pop-Tart. That's why I picked it. So these are the ones that I cut, and this is what I'll be making. And you can see the condensation on the bag. It's just from the refrigerator. It's terrible. So this was what those look like. The recipe that I have on my Linktree makes one of these. And I made it to fit into this half sheet, but in reality it's too thick. So I can pull it out, cut it in half, and then roll it thinner, or I can do what I did, which is to cut the pieces and then roll them thinner. So we have lots of options. And I'm gonna put this back in the bag. The bag has condensation on it because of the warmth and moisture that lives inside of our dough. Okay, so I am gonna cover this back up to touch with the parchment, and because the moisture's on the inside of the bag, I can either use a new bag or I can flip it. Okay. So I'm just gonna flip it. And this guy is really firm, so I'm gonna go ahead and put the other tray on top of here. No problem. Okay, back in my fridge. And then we are going to make a savory galette. Put this in here. Oh yeah, and I have almond crumble. I have so much stuff. Okay, so let me grab some of the things that are going on our savory galette. This is raw sausage. I'm gonna put over here. So we'll manage the dough first. I'm gonna make it bigger. I'm gonna build it on this peel. It's a wood bread peel for putting bread in and out of the oven. But what's great about it is I can put parchment on here, build the galette, which becomes heavy, and just pull the parchment off onto the pizza stone. And I will show you that when I get there. with the large butter chunks, is there a concern for leakage? Not if I keep this cold. That's why I would like to get, I shouldn't let this get too cold. In fact, maybe I'll swap it for the colder one. If this is warm, your butter will melt. If it's cold, that won't happen. Yes, it made one half sheet tray that I then got 2 of these out of and then a bunch of the little guys. But I could have made more. This is too thick, way too thick, okay? So I think what I'll do is roll this out thinner and then put it in the fridge and then pull the other one out and then move a lot quicker so I can get it in the oven. So I'm gonna put a parchment here. You'll just have to bear with. I knew this was gonna be a little challenging. So I don't like to use a lot of flour, just a little bit. And I also like to use a tapered rolling pin. It's thicker in the middle and smaller on the ends. However, I don't like a lot of the ones that are out on the market today. They're really fat and they don't actually taper. So when your dough is really cold, it's actually harder to roll out. So I roll it right out of the bowl, which I will show you when I make it. But for this one, it feels pretty good because it's been out for a minute. So I made these yesterday and I cut them today. So I made 2 sheets yesterday, cut them today to get ready for you guys. And then we will make a whole batch as soon as I get these into the oven. If I find my, so this is why I like this. Watch, I can take this around the edge, and because this is really good for knowing what's going on. I can feel with my hands that this is thinner and this is thicker. So I can take this and I can drive the edge. And if you notice, I don't even want to do it. I never pick up my dough. I never turn it over. I never lift it like with my thumbs. I always just put my hands under this way and I might lift it this way. And I don't even have any flour here. You pull this through the flour that you store at the top of your Silpat. It's just a really great way because the more flour you add, the drier and tougher that it's all gonna get. All right, so I'm not gonna go super, super thin, but I wanna make sure it's even. And I could use a rolling pin that's all straight, but this is the kind of rolling pin that I like. I can literally feel where it's thicker and I can just press it out. So the butter is, we used to do this at school with students who would freak out and say, oh my gosh, I've never seen that much butter, what's gonna happen? It just makes a beautiful finished product. So I can put this on here like this, it goes right on here, and then I can build straight onto here and then into the oven. But what I'm gonna do is put this into the refrigerator right now, and then I'm gonna pull all the ingredients so you can see what I'm doing. So this is what I'm gonna do. I have sausage that's raw and I put little pieces on the very top and it cooks. I don't pre-cook it. So I have potato, asparagus, onions and leeks. And then when I'm all done, I'm gonna make a little vinegar and oil salad that I put on the top of the galette when I pull it out of the oven. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna go for it. Let's just go for it. Oh yeah, I have goat cheese. I just want to make sure I don't forget anything. And I have an egg wash. So I have an egg wash because I'm going to do the edge of the galette. But if you want and are doing savory, you can add pepper and a little seasoning to your egg wash. But I'm not going to because I'm using it for the savory and the sweet. So I have my soft bristle. This is from Ateco. It's my pastry brush. And I've had it for like 15 years. So you can take really good care of your brushes. And this is for my egg wash. And all right, so I was thinking I would put a little sour cream and then the ingredients and then just get it in the oven. And no sauce or anything like that, and just some salt, pepper. All right. I'm gonna go about 1 inch from the edge with this, and I'm not gonna make it super thick because you have to remember sour cream has water in it, and I don't want this to get too wet, but I do want a little bit of something to give it some creaminess, okay? So that's the sour cream. I could use cream cheese. I could egg wash it, which creates a really nice seal. And if I wanted, I could already begin to salt, pepper things. I could start adding whatever seasonings and things like that I want. And I have a ton of seasonings, but I'm just gonna keep it moving. All of these were seasoned earlier in the day. These are sliced potatoes that I sauteed, and this is just a Vidalia onion with, these are leeks. I love leeks. They add a nice oniony flavor without being overwhelming. And then I have some goat cheese. This is a food safety hazard, so I'm gonna put this on last. I want it on the top anyway because I want it to cook directly in the oven. It's raw pork sausage, breakfast sausage. So this is going to be kind of like a, so are these. This is also a food safety hazard, cracking eggs. I want this to be like a breakfast galette, okay? So a galette is a flat pie that you do the edges after you fill it. It doesn't have a tin or anything to hold it. And so the number one problem you might have, and I always have this problem, is overfilling. You want to put just enough and not too much. And I'm really struggling. I don't like the asparagus that I bought. It's really thick. It should be thin and beautiful and delicate. And if I just put this on here, it'll look pretty, but I think when you go to eat it, it might not be as great. So I have food scissors that I think I will just, and you know, in fact, I just love the tops of asparagus. I mean, if all I had to do is eat the top, I would. I love the florets, but I'll take some skinny ones. And again, I don't want to overbuild this, but I will spread them around, and then I want to think about how it's going to look, and I don't want everything to be flat, so I might like lean these thin potatoes onto the asparagus so they're upright a little bit, kind of creating air gaps and space for juices to move around, because you don't want it to just all be flat. I want to have a little bit of relief. Okay, so I think that looks good. This is the Vidalia. I will sprinkle it around. And then the leek. And I didn't overcook these because I know that they're going to be in the oven for a little while. And I was thinking, you know, what temp do I want to do this? Because if you read different recipes and books, you can do anything from, you know, 350 to 425. And I'm going to be baking this on the parchment directly on a baking stone, which is going to give it direct heat and a really nice jolt, which is good. I have to think about what do I want to do. So I set my oven to 370. I kind of split the difference. So let me get rid of these. Let me get rid of the veg. I'm going to put the cheese on last. And here's what you need to do. When you crack an egg, you have to separate everything out from ready to eat, from where you're working to what you touched. So I'm going to crack these eggs. They're going to go on the galette later, but I like to let the eggs kind of come to room temp, and I never crack an egg directly into something. Like if I'm poaching eggs or doing something, I like to put them in another bowl or pitcher so that I can control where they go. But I'm going to work right here knowing that these eggs are contaminant that I'm going to have to sanitize as soon as I'm done. I want the yolk to be whole. I don't want the yolk to be broken. I want the yolks to be whole so that they look pretty. And then I'll compost the egg shell, and I will wash my hands. And I didn't really get any egg on the countertop, but I did crack the eggs. So there is a chance that there is a little bit of, you know, egg product on there, and salmonella is not something that lives just in one place. It's on the chicken, in the chicken, on the egg, in the egg. It's everywhere. So I'm going to clean this up with a sandy towel, let it dry, and so here's what I'm going to do. So the eggs are going to be for later. They're kind of getting, you know, to room temp. So this is the sausage. It's just breakfast sausage. I'm going to take little pieces. I'm going to go ahead and just touch it. I'm going to take little pieces. And I don't need to put a ton. I need to put whatever the right amount is. In theory, you know, this could feed 2 people. This would feed Dave and I, no sweat. But it could, in theory, feed more people. But loading it up with more food is not what you want to do. And I do this a lot with pizza. But a galette is a great opportunity to sort of elevate the whole thing. So this is going to have to be isolated because of the meat, the raw meat. So let me show you how this looks. It's the galette. Everything is par cooked or raw. And then I have goat cheese. I love goat cheese. You can use any kind of cheese you like. Maybe one that melts a little bit better, but I just think goat cheese is good on everything. And I'm going to do the same thing I did with the sausage. I'm going to dollop it around, and it will melt and kind of integrate itself. And I want it to look pretty. Let's see. So there we go. These galettes, the great thing about them, and if you're running any kind of a shop, is a lot of this can be made ahead of time. And it can be made any size. So you can scale things up or down. Okay, so now I'm going to do the pinching part. So there are no rules about how this works. But what you'll see is that you want to pick it up and pinch it and then tuck it in as you go. But you're kind of creating a wall so that any of the juices that accumulate, and this isn't going to be as juicy as like my rhubarb galette. I'm just folding it and pushing it. I'm not even doing a great job. And I'm telling you, it really doesn't matter if you think that you're not making it look perfect or classic or whatever. There are no rules. It's about making sure that it functions. So you want to follow function first and then form. So I don't make galettes often, and I think it's pretty. I don't overthink things, but again, if I were paying, like if I were doing this for a party or being paid to do it for somebody, I would definitely pre-plan the style of the crimp that I was doing. When I say it's a wall, what I mean is there are no holes. As the juices start to render, they will be caught by the side. You see how right there you can see that there's room to catch the juice? Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. The next step is to give it a very quick egg wash. This egg wash is a back pocket recipe. It's just 1 egg, 1 yolk, a splash of heavy cream, and a pinch of salt. And the salt helps make it a little bit thinner so that you can egg wash it. I don't like a sloppy egg wash. I don't want to see glops. And if you glop and drip, when you bake it, you can see it. So even if you can't see it when it's wet, it's going to look icky coming out. So you really want to take a minute to do a good job. And you want to move quickly. But this egg wash is going to basically give you color because you've got the Maillard reaction with the egg, the protein in the eggs. You have the gloss of the egg yolk, and you have the cream, which has a little bit of lactose in it, which is sugar, which gives you a nice Maillard reaction. So you kind of do it for beauty. Otherwise, you'll have a dry looking crust. And one of my things when I was working for other people is I could spend forever egg washing. I love it. I love detail work. But you want to kind of find a balance between taking too long and not long enough. And like I said, if you are doing savory and you want to make your egg wash a little savory, go ahead and add a little pepper to it. But I think this is going to be very pretty. And you don't want to take forever. And honestly, this really should go in the refrigerator for a minute. So I might do that and then get it in the oven as I get my rhubarb started. Now, if I have any drips that are on the parchment, I want to go around and pick them up. I don't want egg. This isn't egg. It's an egg wash. And we want to keep it really thin and even. Anytime you egg wash, you have to think about the egg wash just like you think about every other detail. You have to give it time and consideration. And you know, a lot of you have told me that a lot of what I'm showing and teaching has changed how you work in the kitchen, and that makes me really happy because I think that if all you do is take a moment to approach your work and say, now is time that I'm going to be baking. I've set aside room on my counter and in my life to do this. You're already ahead of the game, so it's amazing. Okay, so my egg wash is going to go over here because I'm going to knead it again. And then I'm going to take kosher salt, which is also a TCS food. This can be contaminated with dirty hands, obviously. And then if it goes on raw food, that's not a good thing. So be careful with dirty hands in the salt. but I'm gonna add a little bit of salt. I see a lot of people online using Maldon salt on everything. And Maldon salt is a really flaky, beautiful salt. It's called a finishing salt. And you don't want to cook with it. You want to finish with it. And it's very large. So I wouldn't even put it on here. So kosher salt for this is a great thing. But when you're adding salt, think about what kind you're using. But just more expensive, fancier is not always the right thing. And kosher salt is great. All right, so this is what it looks like. And I'm going to pop it real quick into the freezer actually to shock it cold, because I know if I put this in my oven, it's going to flop, okay? And then I'm going to work on the rhubarb galette. This is my freezer. Okay, well, it fits, so that's perfect. I'm not going to leave it there forever, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've got going on with the rhubarb stuff before I pull out my dough. Because this time I don't want the dough getting overly warm, okay? If I were working alone, I would have just banged it all out. I would have gotten it done and gotten it in the oven. So this is my rhubarb from earlier today. I don't really like cutting this kind of thing in advance, but I did squeeze a little bit of lemon on it to keep it from oxidizing. Okay, so this is my rhubarb, but I also made a couple other things. This frangipane is nothing more than flour, butter that's creamed, and then egg and egg yolk added with some sugar. So I made frangipane, okay? This needs to be cooked. It has raw eggs in it. I'm going to take this and I'm going to spread it on the bottom of the tartlets and on the bottom of my galette. But here's what I want you to think about. Frangipane usually is pastry cream mixed with almond powder and all that kind of stuff. This is an alternative recipe that I found, kind of simple. I thought you guys might like it because it's really simple. But what I want you to think about is, okay, if you're going to build a galette or a tart or even a pie, because you can add frangipane or just almond meal to the bottom. Last time I did the pie dough, I put the almond meal in there and told you with the cherry pie that it soaks up the juice. So you have to think about, what kind of rhubarb do I want to use to make my tart the right moisture content? And this was a roasted rhubarb. And this will be in a video as well. I chopped up the rhubarb just like this. I put it on a tray with vanilla beans and raw sugar and just roasted it till it was brown. Now I can put this in a tart and it's drier. So these are just things you can think about as you're layering your ingredients and your ideas, your components and your flavor. And do you want crunch? Because I do have streusel please don't let me forget the streusel. But you're right, frangipane's usually made with almond cream, with pastry cream, which most people are not going to make pastry cream and then make almond cream. So this recipe was just creaming, I think all-purpose flour with the butter and sugar and then the eggs and whatever. So it was really easy. So I've never tried this. If I don't like it, I'll let you know, but I kind of feel like I'm gonna like it. We have these different kinds of rhubarb. And this is the rhubarb where I'm going to make it into a filling. And I'm going to show you how I do that really quickly. Into it, I'm going to get a bigger bowl, but into here is going to be, so I'm making a filling, and the filling is going to go inside the galette, or in one of the tarts, or in one of the ham pies. But I'm going to make a big batch, and then whatever's left over, I'll figure out what to do with it. But in the rhubarb filling, I'm going to have vanilla bean paste, which I love because it's thicker, and you can see all the beautiful vanilla bean seeds, which I love when you can see that. And I love Nielsen Massey. I think it's a great company. And then I have cake flour, kosher salt, brown sugar, and then this is my own vanilla sugar. And I use spent vanilla beans that, like the ones I use to make the roasted rhubarb, I rinse them off and they're over there drying on a paper towel. I then put those into sugar, and after years of collecting them, I grind them up and sift it out, and this is sucrose with vanilla bean pods ground up in it. It smells amazing. And then I need to squeeze a little bit of lemon juice, and I put all of my labels even on a lid because I don't want to do the lemon juice in advance because you want it to stay very, acidic, and it kind of loses its oomph if you do it too far in advance. Oh, that's for the rhubarb. Okay, that's the galette. Here we go. 8 grams of lemon juice. So that is how this system works. If I get confused there's a label. There's no container, but there's a label telling me I need to do this. So this is for the galette, so I'm gonna move it. And then I'm gonna get a bigger bowl. And this is so easy because you basically just mix it all together like you would an apple pie. These are my rhubarbs, and rhubarb is very tart. And it doesn't grow everywhere, but if it's growing wild where you live, one of the tricks I've learned is that instead of cutting it when you harvest it, if you twist it and pull it out, it will regrow. That's something to know. This is my mini baby scale, $9.99 from Amazon. I need 8 grams of lemon juice, and that's less than 20. So today I used my lemon and I store it like this. And if I put a lid on here and put a date, I could just put it in the fridge and it's not gonna dry out. But now I'm going to use it to scale 8 grams. And if I go over, it's not a big deal. I love lemon, it's one of my favorite flavors. Yeah, I went a little bit over, but I'm okay with it. And then later I can use this in a drink. I always just keep whatever's extra and add some ice to it, and it becomes something I use later. So it's a little bit extra, but I don't mind. That's kind of how I like it. I'm not usually haphazard, but with a couple things, I don't mind if it's a little extra. I don't mind if it's a little extra vanilla bean paste or lemon juice, but if it's something that's going to fundamentally change the thickness or something like that, then I worry. So this is my rhubarb. I scaled it out at 20 grams. And I am going to keep all of my labels here on the side, just as a reference so I don't lose track of where I am until I'm all ready to be done. It will regrow, but what people say is if you want it to regrow quickly in like this season, you can get a second harvest. But if you cut it, it will grow back. It's a perennial. It'll grow back next year, but it won't grow back this year. So that's the difference. Some of you have asked, like, how do I know when I get rid of here's a lid that's cracked. So now that's done. And that, so they get old, but I reuse and wash them, but eventually they crack. I'm gonna put gloves on. I do this for a couple of reasons. I don't have to because this is gonna be cooked, so it's not like I'm protecting ready to eat food, but it's acidic, which if I have any cuts or anything, any hangnails or I have sensitive skin, I don't like that. But also, I am gonna massage these ingredients into the rhubarb, and I do this method with fruit pies and with granola. Anytime that you need to feel that you have moisturized your food all the way, I like to do it with my hands. I could absolutely, and I'm a big proponent of not touching the food. The less you touch your food, the better quality it ends up being. In really fancy restaurants, they count how many touches they are and they work on removing the touches. Fewer touches equates to higher quality. However, in this case, my hands are better than a spatula because if I just stir it, first of all, I might be banging it too hard, maybe bruising it, I don't know. With my hands, I can literally feel that there is an even coating of the ingredients. So it's kind of like with the egg wash, it's many, many things. If you envision and think like the ingredient, and there's all these rhubarb pieces in here, and most of them are covered, maybe just this one is stuck to this one, and so there's no stuff in the middle. Or you have chunks that you kind of aren't aware of. So your hands are a really good tool. I'm putting this, look at this beautiful vanilla sugar. I mean, it's just so gorgeous, I can't even stand it. The lemon juice. This is, what flour? I said cake flour. We're using cake flour because it's got less protein. And brown sugar. Brown sugar is going to add a little bit of flavor because of the molasses that lives in it. I think that's a nice addition. In this case, we really do want the sugar to dissolve, so I wouldn't sub out like raw sugar or anything because that is not going to dissolve as quickly. Okay, all right. It smells so good. All right, so all the ingredients are in there, so now I can move my ingredient label to my dish bin. And I'm going to take my hands and do you see how I do this? I did this with my cherry pie and I do it with the apple. You go and granola. Because I don't want to be rough, I go underneath and gently move it around. It's almost like a hand version of folding. And there are a lot of old school bakers who used to fold batter with their hand because it was so gentle. Now this is pretty dry because there's not a lot of added moisture in it, but the moisture is going to come from what lives inside the rhubarb. The rhubarb is going to interact with the sugar, the sucrose and the brown sugar, and sucrose is hygroscopic, so it pulls moisture from the air. So it is absolutely going to pull the moisture from the rhubarb, and this is going to create a like a sauce. But it's pretty dry. I mean, you can see that there's quite a bit of sugar on here, and we'll take a look at this in a little while. So let me show you. See how much sugar's in there? So if this were me, I wouldn't do it too far in advance. I think we're fine now, but just so you know. All right, and then I just take off the gloves. All right, that is that. I'm just gonna put this over here, and then I'm gonna get the galette dough, and I'm gonna roll it out, and we're gonna get this put together really fast. But meanwhile, I'm gonna get the galette into the oven. So I have the Savory Galette in the freezer because I know that if you put it in when it's too warm, it'll just melt. Here's the galette. Let me turn on the light. So can you see in here that there is a pizza stone? I'm gonna put this in there, and you could put this in and throw it, you know, like a pizza, but I don't wanna loosen up anything. So I'm gonna gently pull it. I should have protection for my arms. All right, so I'm gonna pull this out a little bit. And if this was going to be very liquidy and spill all over my oven, I absolutely would not put this here, but I don't think that's what it's gonna do. And if it does, I'll fix it. All right, there we go. So it's going straight on a preheated pizza stone. Boom, there we go. I like to check things at 20 minutes. It's just kind of my habit. And when you do the same time over and over again, you kind of build in your own sense of time, which is kind of nice. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pull my Silpat. I'm gonna work as fast as I can. This time though, I'm gonna put this onto a different tray because this could end up being juicy, but this still is a nice thing to have for moving things around, especially when they don't have an underneath. Even if you're doing pies and you have an aluminum pan or anything, this has like a bevel, and it really is nice for giving you extra support. I do like using a pizza peel, but I highly recommend these as well. This is from Fat Daddy-O's, and they market it as a cookie, you know, lifter, but it is so heavy it doesn't bend. So you can literally pick up the heaviest pie in the world and slide it in and out a lot easier into the oven without it, you know, bending or anything like that. So I can recommend this. Okay, so let me grab, I want to show you what I'm using because I get really excited about this. So now I have not pulled out the galette dough because I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to move really fast. This is called a Silpat, like P-A-I-N, like bread, and it's see-through and it's black. It's not orange or tan. And it is marketed to bake bread on, but it works really well with tarts that you're not using. Like if you use a tart ring and no bottom or a pan with no bottom. So with a galette, in a way, it's creating an air gap between the pan and the galette because it's lifting up just a little bit, but it helps crisp up the bottom. Because if I were to just put parchment or even a Silpat, because the Silpat's an insulator. So if I put the galette dough on there, it's gonna go really slow. I'm not gonna get that shot of heat, and I'm gonna get butter melting and things like that. So I'm gonna try using the Silpat. I only have like one of these. I have lots of Silpats, but I have one of these, maybe two, because I like to do my tarts with tart rings. And I'm gonna do it with the galette, and I want you to know that's why I'm doing it. But I'm gonna pull the dough. I'm gonna roll, roll, roll. I'm gonna put frangipane on the bottom, and then I'm gonna fill it with this. And then that, and crumble, and that's going to go in the oven on the top shelf, and that's it. That's in the oven. This is a Silpat. It's made by the same people that make the Silpat, and it is for crisping things. So you could do bread on here, and it'll give you a crunchier. Because when you use a Silpat, it's not breathable. You're going to get moisture on the bottom, and it just works really differently. So I recommend a Silpat, P-A-I-N, and I've done videos about this. So I have this off to the side. All right, so I'm gonna get all ready. So I like to get everything kind of in place. So I'm ready to go. I'm gonna get one of my favorite tools. This is for the frangipane, a little 4-inch offset spatula. Just put it right here, okay? And what else do I need? I'm not gonna pull my streusel out because the streusel is like a pie dough. Streusel, and I'll show it to you, but it is cold butter with flour and brown sugar and other things. And when you crumble, when you put it on top, if you put it in there warm, it's gonna melt out and smush. If you put it in there cold, it's gonna stay and puff and turn into a beautiful little cookie crust, which is great. And the one that I made is made with almond flour. So we have almond crumble, we have tart rhubarb with lots of brown sugar and vanilla sugar, and then we have almond frangipane, which is almond cream, basically, almond flour, eggs, butter, and sugar, and then we have the galette crust. So these are flavors that are melding together. I've thought about the different textures and how it's going to look, and then I'm going to give it a little bit of an egg wash, and I'm going to finish it with raw sugar around the edges so that it has a little bit of crunch on the edge. So I think it'll be beautiful. It is a little bit similar, the Silpat is similar to a perforated baking sheet. It's the same concept. The perforated baking sheet though, you are directly on there and the holes allow air and heat to transfer more quickly. The difference between the perforated pan and the Silpat is that this is creating a very small air gap and the holes. So you're getting the air coming through, but also a little bit of room so that whatever moisture, because there's moisture that lives in our dough, collects. On a Silpat, it just sits in itself. It sits in its butter, it sits in the water, the moisture, the steam, it sits in the condensation. So it kind of gives you this air gap so that the heat evaporates that moisture, which crusts up and crisps the bottom of your bread or your tart or your galette. So if you're thinking about what kind of tool is really going to change my game, I think a Silpat is a game changer. So I'm going to work very quickly. I have my rolling pin. I'm going to move everything out of the way. So my goal is to work quickly and to build quickly and then to get it in the oven quickly. That's my goal. So I'm going to try to focus. I need a little bit of flour. This is bread flour, and I always put it up at the top. Not all over, a little bit, but I don't need a ton. And I have my tapered rolling pin. All right, so I'm gonna get the galette dough. So here's my galette dough. Beautiful chunks of butter. A little bit of flour on the bottom. Beautiful. So I'm gonna put this here, and it's pretty cold. It's been in there, and I don't want a bunch of cracks. So I'm just gonna go slow around the edge. And I know it looks like I'm picking it up with my thumb, but I don't actually attach my thumb, and I don't go in two directions. I go in one direction. And until I kind of get it a little bit bigger, I don't even need to know if I'm doing it thick or thin in places. I just need to get it spaced out. And generally, your thickest parts are in the center, but not always. And I do my best to take one movement, stop, and then move my dough. I have a kind of a strict rule. And you see how I haven't needed any flour? That's it. You don't have to add a ton of flour. People over flour their doughs to the point where they end up being dry. And from all my conversations with you guys, I don't know that a lot of people have ever had a really excellent tart, galette, or pie. I think that it is very rare to not only go to a bakery that has beautiful, see here, I need just a little bit. So I just run it through there versus adding flour. I don't flip it over, not lifting it. I'm not like flipping it. It's just horrible. Don't touch it. You lift it like this and you drag it through the flour and it moves around. This is my go-to right here. I can close my eyes. I can feel that it's thinner here and a little thicker over here. And this is an old pin. There's not a bunch of stuff on here. It's cured. I've used it so much that the butter has made it somewhat, not completely. So if I move quickly, these butter bits aren't a problem. But if I go too slow, they're going to melt and start sticking. And I don't want them to do that. So I'm going to move really fast. And I can make this as thin or thick as I want. I basically am going to do it based on what I know about what I want and kind of what's going on here. I don't need it to be supported, to be picked up. It's going to be built on the Silpat. But, all right. All right, so it's a pretty good circle. I'm going to move it over here, and then this is done. I'm going to take this away. So I'm going to build my galette on here. I'm going to lift it up, put it right on here, and then I'm going to take the frangipane. And it doesn't need to be thick, but it shouldn't be, I mean, it can be as thin as you want it to be. But I'm going to put it about, I'm going to spread it around about an inch from the edge. And this will catch some moisture, and it will also taste great, and it'll puff up just a little bit. So there's my frangipane, and I can use this frangipane for all my little hand pies and all of my Pop-Tarts and mini tartlets and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so look at that. Remember I said how it was all granular and dry and powdery? It's already getting wet, and that's because sugar's gonna sugar. That's what it does. Sugar's always the bully. It's always going to get what it needs. If your numbers are out of whack, the sugar's going to take that water that your flour needs. So you need to make sure that you're thinking about what fruit are you using, how moist is it, how much water is it giving off. And you know, sometimes your fruit is different depending on the season. I wipe down my rolling pin with a hot, clean towel. I do not dip it in water, but I clean it, and you can use a little bit of, you know, dish detergent if you want, but you don't want to soak it in water. You wipe it off, and the butter and the fat that fills in the cells of the wood, it keeps it clean. And it doesn't smell, which is an indicator of bacteria, and that's how old-fashioned hardwood rolling pins are. That's why we use hardwood. If you use a soft wood, like a cedar, it's going to absorb and create bacteria, because anywhere where moisture can hide. So it's a good hard maple. I'm going to stir this with my hands, and I mean, you can just see how much wetter it is. And I like being able to do this because now I can see where there are some pieces in sugar that haven't been distributed. But look at that. So much wetter. And I'm going to take it. And you remember when I did the pies, for those of you who were here, I don't add fruit and spread it around. I don't place it around. I build it in the middle. I drop it and lift because it's going to fall naturally. Now, I'm not trying to avoid the liquid, but I'm not trying to grab it either. So I'm going to grab what I need, and then I lift it up like this. I just pull my hands away because I don't need to spread it around. It's going to spread on its own. Now, if I were doing this and selling it or concerned, I would absolutely know how much this should weigh, and I would have it all scaled out. But these are going to reduce and get really small. So I don't want too little, and I don't want too much that it's going to overflow. But maybe I'll take just a little bit more. But again, I'm not going to build around. I'm going to build up. I'm going to call it there. I say I get greedy, and I can use all of this in my hand pies or other things, okay? This is my almond streusel that I made yesterday. It's been in the refrigerator. It's raw. Just flour, sugar, butter, okay? Just like a cookie. I can put this in the freezer and keep it for months, or I can bake it and use it on the side, and it can be like a nice little cookie crunch. But I'm going to take the raw streusel and put it on top of here and make it like a nice crumble on the top. So I'm going to do what I did with the overlapping edges and make it look as pretty as I can. I do feel like I would like this to go just a little bit more toward the edges, and then I am going to build a bit of a wall to collect the juice. There we go. I just want it to fall in the center just to get it around to the edge just a wee bit more. All right. So I'm going to lift this up and then just pinch it and push it down and just go around and make a wall. You just pull it together like, I don't even know. What is it like? Just tucking it in. There is no rule about this. I mean, obviously, if I were doing this for a client or something, I would plan out what I wanted it to look like. But I want it to hold in the juices, so I need a bit of a wall so that the juices, and even if the juices, which they may, fall to the outside, who cares? I love when juices pool and get all caramelized and juicy. That's my favorite way to eat an apple pie. But you can see it's almost like a purse. It's sort of around there. And I'm going to keep moving. I'm going to do the egg wash first, and then I'm going to do the crumble, and then it's going in the oven. All right, the galette is looking good, and we'll be able to look at it when we come back. Okay, so let me take my egg wash, go around the edge. Remember, egg wash is for beauty or for protection. I could have egg washed the bottom. That cooks and it helps, you know, protect the dough from absorbing all the moisture and getting soggy. But I think with our beautiful Silpat, we won't have that problem. But, you know, I haven't actually made this exact rendition of this in a long time. And I definitely haven't in this oven. So my egg wash needs to be thin. It needs to be complete. I don't want to miss a bunch of parts. And I don't want globs on the actual pan because that looks icky. So if you bake and your egg wash has a bunch of egg globs and drips and hard bits of eggs, that is yucky. So after you give it a nice egg wash and you've got all the parts, what I do is I scrape off my brush and I go back through very quickly and I pull anything that looks like it's puddled or dripped. And this looks pretty good. And like I said earlier, you know, I toggle between taking too long and being too fussy. But there we go. That's good. And I don't want to use my towel to clean up this egg wash. I don't know how that got there, but there we go. And then I'm going to take a little raw sugar and I'm going to put it just on the edge where the crust is. And maybe tilt it to catch it. This will add really pretty color. Sugar caramelizes a little bit in the oven. And there we go. And it will add a little texture, which is nice. All right, so here is my streusel, and it, again, is raw. It's an almond streusel that I made yesterday, so it's nice and cold, and it could be frozen. This entire thing I could freeze on a parchment and wrap and bake it another day. It all freezes very well, just like an apple pie. So I have some pieces that are big and some that are little. So what I'm going to do is go through with my spidey fingers, because I don't want to smush stuff, and move some of the big ones aside and start just like I did before, putting it in the middle on the top. At this point, I don't need to spread it around. It's going to spread around on its own. Okay? And you can make this any size you want. I like to put the smaller pieces on first and then finish with some decorative larger pieces. And they seem to bake just fine. Okay. But yeah, you can divide out the little from the big. And also, if your streusel, goes in the refrigerator, it dries out over time and it's very moist when you first mix it. So you can leave it uncovered for day one in the cooler and then maybe cover it to make sure it doesn't dry out too much. So you're always in control of the moisture. Now, this doesn't need to be like the apple pie. I don't need to cover every bit of it. And I do want to keep it moving. Okay, and then I'm going to clean up the tray. I don't want these on here. They can, scorch and that kind of thing. Okay, so I'm going to take a couple big guys and I'm going to place them so that they bake like cookies. Not too big, because if it's too big, it might not bake and it will get scorched. but I think they look pretty and I like doing that. And they are like cookies, and it does add a really nice texture. So we'll look at the galette when I go over there. Perfect timing. And I can kind of cover everything up as I go like this. Again, I do tend to take too long, and that's why when I work by myself, one of my two things are focusing, tuning everything out, but also creating a sense of urgency and working more quickly is very important. Pastry chefs tend to have a problem with that because a lot of what we do is in advance, so it's not like we're making everything for service, and so that's something that's really something that we try to build in. Now, this is exactly the kind of filling that I could have used bitters, because the bitters would have added some nice flavor, and maybe I can for my other ones so that I can compare. So I'm going to take you guys over here and show you this going in the oven. So this is going to go in here, and I will pull the camera off. So it's going to go there. I think I'm going to turn the oven up to 375, and I'm going to flip the camera so you guys can see what's going on in here. So I'm going to open this real quick. So you can see that's starting to brown. Okay, so I have two things in there, and that's going to use up some of the airflow that I've got going. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on it, and I'm going to set the alarm, the timer, for 10 minutes. So I think what I'll do now is make the galette dough and then come back to making the hand pies. So you can kind of contextualize, what is going on. And that's easy for me to transition to. I think everything look okay here. Yes. I'm going to put the meat back in the fridge. The 10 minutes is so that I can come back and check on the galette. I adjusted the temperature, so in 10 minutes, I should see what's going on there. This is an old place that I rent, and the only thing I can do is keep it clean. And I like cleaning before and after stuff as a clean out my brain. It kind of helps me transition to either ending the day, moving to the next task, beginning the day. It can be anything I need it to be, but that's what I do. Let me flip this real quick and show you what I have here. This is my list of stuff to do. So we're gonna do the fluted hand pie. I did the galette, I did the large, did the egg wash. We have the frangipane rhubarb filling. I have jam to make the hand pies. I'm not gonna do the cinnamon, I should have erased that. And then I have fresh blackberries, all of which I don't need to use. But I definitely want to talk about the different ways that this kind of dough is so practical for making easy things. If you have this dough flat and in your freezer, you can pull it to your refrigerator the night before, cut it out with the cutters like I'm going to show you, and then just throw jam in there, pinch it together, give it an egg wash or a little cream and some raw sugar, and throw it in the oven, and you have a beautiful dessert. So a lot of this you can do ahead. You can also make the galette or a hand pie and freeze it. And then you have a beautiful hand pie in the freezer ready to go. So I'm going to show you some cute stuff. I have cutters so you can make the top look decorative. And all you need, I like a fluted cutter, but if you've got rectangles or squares or circles or hearts, you can make PoP, little hand pies in any shape. Definitely though, you can freeze them. When I open your oven, how much does it dip? A lot, like 20 degrees. So I don't like opening it. And I have an oven thermometer that I'm not using this second because I don't want to knock it around, it gets in the way, but it should be hanging from a rack, not sitting on anything. And it should be in a part of your oven that it makes sense. Near the walls or the back, you have hot spots and stuff. So you want to find like what really is the temperature of your oven. Work with an oven thermometer. When it gets old, get a new one. They're like $4. All right. That's the temperature coming up. I'm going to grab my mixer. I'll turn this so you can see what I'm doing in the kitchen. I'm going to grab the mixer, and also going to show you how I can deli up my streusel so that I don't have it sitting on the counter getting all warm. I've worked in a lot of kitchens. Before I went to pastry school when I was 41, I thought about becoming a professional organizer. I love organizing, and I'm good at it. Plus, we've moved a lot, so I'm good at like redoing things, and I've designed and cleaned and redone a lot of professional kitchens for schools and other things, which I really enjoy doing. All right, so what do I need? I need my ingredients, which are for the galette, and then I have water, which is in the fridge, and I have the butter in the freezer. Okay, This goes very fast. It's insane. So as you all know, I scale my ingredients in advance. I scaled these on Monday, okay? So this is super convenient. The water has been in the refrigerator, and normally I would have my recipe here so that I could compare it, but I know this is right because this is the third time I've made it now. And this is my AP flour, and one of the reasons I like this recipe is because it uses AP flour. And when you're scaling and you use a digital scale, not everything, but this is about 500 grams in your large deli. Okay, so you kind of start to know if you have it right. 544 grams, it fit in here, so I know that's right. And then I have kosher salt at 4.5 grams. I have white vinegar, 11.8, and 181 grams of cold water. And then this is the butter. This is when in a recipe you have 2 butters or 2 sugars. This is butter number 2. This is going to be melted. And so the one that is cold is in the freezer, and this one is going in the microwave. I'm gonna do it, and these, you don't wanna microwave longer than 30 seconds at a time, or maybe 25 seconds. But when you melt butter, you don't melt it till it's dead. There might still be solid pieces in there. They will melt out. That butter is malleable that way. It's sensitive to heat. Let me put this on 25 seconds, and so it goes really, really fast, okay? Flour, butter, salt. Start paddling it, and not even long after is going to go the water and the vinegar, half of it, and then the melted butter, and then the rest of the water, and then boom, it comes together, and then you pull it out. That's it. So I'm going to take the vinegar and the water, and I'm going to combine them. That way it makes it a little bit easier. There it goes. And the vinegar, like I said, there are a lot of people who like to use vinegar and vodka and things like that in their dough. And some say it helps keep the gluten from getting tough. It sort of prevents gluten development. That maybe, but even if it doesn't, vinegar is a really nice flavor. It balances out doughs, and I don't mind it. So I think it's not a bad thing if you do it. I think it's great. Normally, I like to dissolve salt in the liquid, but the recipe doesn't call to do that, so I'm not going to. And this is the kind of recipe from a really well-respected chef that I don't question their method. I don't tinker with great, you know what I mean? So in the flour goes first, and the salt. So I'm kind of ready to go. And you just want to be really careful, because once you get started, you want to get this done. And so I don't even start incorporating ingredients until I kind of figure out where I am. I need to get the lay of the land. So I'm going to go look at what's in the oven, look at the timer. So that's my melted butter. I'm just going to leave it there. It's not as cold in here as it was in the wintertime, so it's not going to re-solidify super fast. Although I can feel the fresh air, it is a little cold. Let me go check, because I just want to make sure once I get started that I don't have to be interrupted. Oh yeah, I was going to do this really quick. So we have 1:55. Oh yeah. My galette, I should have taken the galette and put it in the freezer. It's kind of falling apart, which is sad, but it's okay. I will be okay. But if I were you, and if it took you a minute to get that into the oven, you'd probably definitely want to take that moment to put it back in the fridge or in the freezer. I would do the freezer. Now, the thing is, you really want your dough getting full of the liquid and everything, and that's the concern. But in this case, I don't think it would have hurt for me to throw it in the freezer. But really, my recommendation to you is just don't talk, don't chat, don't be paying attention to what people need. Pay attention to what the ingredients need, which is they have to be cold, unfortunately. Okay, so this is going in my freezer, and out of the freezer is coming my butter. Now, I cut the butter up a little bit small, and it calls for the butter to be chopped kind of large. But the reason I did it small is because it really does kind of get knocked out of my bowl. So I give it a little head start by cutting it a little smaller than is recommended. And when I scale butter, it's like this. I pre-chop it into little cubes. And this is going to go in here. So, you know, can it go in the fridge or the freezer? Yeah, it doesn't necessarily have to be an It might not even be a good thing to be completely solid and frozen. I think the point is you want it colder than you want it warm. That's very important. Yeah, it's pretty cold. So I'm probably, I call it plooping. I'm probably gonna get a little plooping. Let me go check what's going on here. My poor rhubarb. I'm gonna turn it off just a little and I'm gonna give it 10 minutes. I wanna put the eggs on the galette when they have like 5 minutes left. So I have the butter, the salt, and the flour in here, and then here are my liquids. And I'm gonna get the Silpat on the ready, right here. I just like to get everything that I need nearby. So I could take plastic, it's not hard, but you just take plastic and wrap it around, but I'm gonna get some stuff coming out. So I can pulse it to help fight. Today the butter was not this hard, and I probably shouldn't have let it get this firm. Probably not even good for my mixer. But I'm gonna stop it and show you how I clean up and how I cover it. I'm gonna change course. So I used 2 of these King Arthur, they're not really bench knives, but they are, but they're plastic. I used 2 of them to pick up the flour. And then I'm gonna grab the plastic. Now some of you might be thinking, oh, you can use a towel. Yeah, but it still comes out the bottom. So I do like plastic wrap for this reason. And the bigger, I have 3 sizes of plastic wrap, and I could have used the biggest, but all right, here we go. So I want this to keep it in there, but I don't want it accidentally getting pulled in. That's bad. All right, so here we go. These machines are dangerous, to be honest. You don't want your hands in there. You want to be careful. If this thing decided to catch or fly off, it could break a finger or something like that. So there we go. Let me show you what's going on in the bowl. So you can see large pieces of butter, and you can hear it. You can hear that they're very cold. Now, I don't think that it's being as crazy as it was, so we'll pull the plastic off. It's really just for the beginning. So you saw how large the pieces were when I made the dough. So I'm not gonna wait forever for these to get piece size. I'm probably going to go until they're, I don't know, macadamia, walnut size. Half the liquid, all the butter, which is a little warm, which is counterintuitive to making a pie dough. This is very cold, I can feel, which is good. All right, so I mean, they're like that. You saw in the thing. So I'm going to do half. All the butter. And then all the water. Because the butter's frozen, the melted butter did not make everything cohesive. A little different than it was this morning. I would say it needs to be in the fridge, the butter, and then into the freezer for like 10 or 15 minutes, not completely frozen. But this is going to be great. And this gives me a little bit of time to be able to roll it out, not have it get all soft and incorporated. Because I don't want to be touching it even like I am now. Like you want to just be done. There we go. I will show you this. This is what it looks like. It's very shaggy and almost dry. Not a problem. Let me move this thing. I end up getting shocked one of these days. It's not good. I got shocked one time at a sink when I was washing my hands, and I lifted the one hand up to turn on an old fluorescent light, and it completed the circuit, and I got shocked, and I was pregnant. We ended up going to the hospital just to double check. But apparently if that happens, the woman takes the hit, not the baby. So that was good. When you wipe off the counter, it actually helps the Silpat stick better. So that's a good thing. You can see if you need it to not slide it around. A lot of people ask, can I use a parchment? And it just doesn't work the way a Silpat does. I use this Silpat to move the dough without touching it by doing this. I sometimes will use it to fold and move things around. So it is a tool that gives you a lot of multifunctional opportunity. So here's my flour up at the top. I'm going to put a little bit here, and then I'm going to dump it out. You can see it's more than shaggy, but yeah, it's nice and cold. So I'm going to take this and just do this, and take the heel of my hand and start moving it together. Now, like I said before, I can divide this in half and then do a half sheet tray and another half sheet tray, but I decided to do this all together in one half sheet tray, a little bit too thick. So then I pull in the edges. You see how I don't have to touch this? I can just use the Silpat. It is kind of nice. Yeah, it's very cold. Yeah, I think the butter just got a lot harder, and I like a little more give. I like to be able to move the dough around quickly and add just a little bit, because mostly it's the butter that's getting soft and sticking. This is going in to the refrigerator so that it can stay cold. All right, so I'm gonna pull this out. You can see it's nice and dark. And maybe I won't use all 3 eggs. Maybe I'll just put 1. No, I'm gonna put 2. Oh, and the yolk broke. Oh well. So there we go. So when that's cooked, I can bring it out. Meanwhile, this is a bit of a mess. Who knows if we'll end up with the fire. I want to turn down the heat. It's burning it. I'm going to come back and check that egg in 5 minutes. It's too close to the top. All I'm doing with this dough is rolling it out. So this is just way more dramatic than it needs to be. So you want to move quickly. You want to keep it in shape. Because it's fitting in here, I keep the parchment so I can look and make sure that it's the right size. So let me just roll this out a sec. I mean, in your dough, that's why if it gets too soft or you live in a hot environment, you put it in the refrigerator for a minute. If it's too cold, you just let it warm up. And so typically, if I'm just working by myself, this isn't a problem, but now I could leave it this size and put it in the fridge and freezer it and then use it later. But I'm going to go ahead and bring it to the full size because that'll work for me in the future. My future self will thank me. And again, what you want to do, and you can see all the pieces of butter, is put this on here because I want it to fit onto this sheet tray. Okay, so we're close, but it's very thick. And I only tell you that because obviously you're not going to keep it that thick. But I'm aware it's thick. That's not the thickness you would use if you were making a galette. So you can cut with a smaller cutter and then roll it a little bigger like I did. And you can do that based on what ingredients you use later, and you kind of build in a little bit of room to play. The closer you get it to the shape that you need, from the beginning of rolling, the easier and faster it will go. Okay. But if I put this in the fridge and let it get all hard and it's torn on the edges and it's a mess, then future me is going to be like, well, great, that's all wasted and this doesn't work and I can't use that. So you definitely want to think about how you're going to be using this, whether it's tomorrow or like this. This will go in the freezer. Okay, so what you're going to do is put it on the parchment, give it a little bit of a rub so it stays, and you're going to flip it over and peel off the Silpat just like that. And then I'm going to put another Silpat on here. Parchment. And make sure that it sticks. Everything should be even. And then flip it over and into the pan. And then the pan gets wrapped either in plastic wrap or a plastic bag, and it goes into the refrigerator or the freezer, and I label it with the date that it was made. And that's how I do that. And then I'm going to pull out some little guys and kind of play and answer questions, but just have fun with the rest of this time, and we'll pull stuff out of the oven. Normally I wouldn't do this many things in the oven. That would not even be a thing that I do because none of it would cook well. Like in a home oven, you need to do one thing and then something else. So I'm going to show you like real quickly what I might do with these guys. All right, well, it's looking good. I'm sad about the rhubarb galette. It's not as pretty as it could be. Here is what I do with these hand pies. Get some jam. So you take 2 pieces that are similar size, And you want to take the prettiest one on the top. This one's a little cracked, so I'm gonna put that on the bottom. This will go on the top. And I have these plunger cutters, a heart and a circle. So when you do it, you plunge out the little piece. So I'll just do a couple of hearts. You want this to be cold, just like when you're making any pie stuff. So I can always throw this back in the refrigerator while I'm working. There's no rush. It can dry out a little bit, but it's more important that you pay attention and respect what the dough needs than what you need. Maybe this is why some people don't like baking. How you incorporate the ingredients in what order and how you handle them and all that matters, and that makes people nervous. So I would place this on the tray. I would take a tiny bit. You don't want it dripping, but you do want this to stick just around the edge. But the water isn't what makes it stick. It's the crimping. This jam, which is a strawberry rhubarb. There we go. I don't want to overdo this because it's just going to come out the edge. So it might anyway. Oh well. But I'm just going to put it down the center. See that? Just down the middle. And then I'm going to place this on top. But I'm not going to push it. But I am going to take the fork, press and slide. Press and slide. And juice is coming out now, which is fine. It's okay. I mean, I can make things that are perfect and beautiful, but I think it's more important that you understand what's going on and don't worry about it being perfect and beautiful every single time, because you will develop, that skill. You always want to start out working slow and precise, and you can work faster and get better. It just takes time. But again, you want it to be clean. You don't want to go crazy. Go quickly. This makes it shiny and pretty. You don't want to mess with the filling. I mean, this is adorable. And the fact that I can freeze it and bake it another day is amazing. So I'm just going to kind of go in between. Doesn't that look cute? Look at the hearts. I did them every other direction. I love this Swedish pearl sugar. And this will stick onto the egg wash and to the jam, and it won't melt. It'll look like this after it bakes. So I'm going to pop this in the freezer while I check on the galette. Okay? Thanks for hanging. Is anyone here? Like, do you care? I'm so sorry. I need like a crew. I need a couple. I need at least two cameras, because like this is just too much. It's insane. All right, let me see. I'm going to put this back in the fridge. It's gonna make the counter a little messy, but I'm okay with that. I'm gonna take 2 of my ham pies. I would love an assistant. Can you imagine? Yeah, I'll just do 2 of these for now. Show you what I'm doing. All right, so it doesn't matter what size these are. They can be any size I want them to be. And I'm gonna make them bigger. And this is gonna be a mini galette. And I'm going to build it right on the pan that I put in the freezer. So I'll show you what I mean. Because once you fill a galette, you can't really move it around. So that's why it's good to build it on a pan or on the peel or something like that. All right, let me grab them. Woohoo! All right, yeah, these are going to freeze up. I can just like bake these another day. This looks really cute though, doesn't it? All right, so I'm going to take a little frangipane. And it should not go all the way to the edge. And these are going to go in the freezer. They're going to end up looking better than the big one, because I kind of, practice is amazing. Just working on this in front of you, I've already refined what I did. Like every time you make something more than once, you refine yourself. And that is also why I like doing small batches in rapid succession. If you make this dough 3 times in a row, it's just going to be, you're going to learn so much. That's why I like making smaller amounts, learning from that. That's a good way to go. I'm going to use a spoon and 1 glove. So I'm going to stir this, but there's a lot of juice. You see all that juice? I'm not going to use all the juice because I know I'm going to have a mess. But I'm not going to not use it, but I'm not going to try to use it. I'm going to okay, so I'm going to fill these guys up in the center. I've got the frangipane. What else? Anything else I can? I mean, I could zest anything I want on here, a little bit of orange. Okay. And I'm gonna fold it. And you wanna egg wash it. If you're gonna freeze, you wanna egg wash it before you freeze it. So I'm gonna make this a little more like a dumpling, like a purse. Bring it in just a little higher because I washed the other one and it's really leaking. And I'm actually gonna get it in the freezer before I egg wash it because it's so soft. I need to give it a little bit of structure. Yeah, these are gonna bake pretty. You can always make a video about it tomorrow. But you see how I made those into pretty little purses? Now I'm gonna put them in the freezer. I'm gonna do one more thing. When this galette comes out of the oven, I am going to put on it a little green, some greens that are gonna wilt. And this is just arugula. Arugula. This is my favorite balsamic vinegar. It's a very specific one from Williams-Sonoma, and it's the 25-year aged one, and they have a knockoff, and I've accidentally ordered it and I don't like it. This is really good and I love it. A little salt, pepper, and when this galette comes out of the oven, I'm just gonna put this on top and let it wilt. It's just a little rocket salad, just a little arugula, vinegar, and olive oil, salt, pepper. Nothing fancy. Just adds really nice color. Ooh, it looks good. It smells good. It smells like sausage and potato. It's on the parchment, which I actually don't hate. I think it's kind of, you know, cool. I like it. Now, the egg would have looked better, obviously, if the yolk had stayed intact. But can you see all the little potatoes and whatnot? So then I take this, because it's hot, and just, again, when you build a salad, you kind of just place it and lift up. You don't press it down or move it around. You lift upward. That's how it ends up looking pretty, okay? Now if I want, I can take it off of the parchment very easily. Ooh, that looks pretty. And you can use a pizza cutter or a knife. The lighting, it's getting dark here. It's getting a little harder to see. Let me cut this and plate it up. Maybe Dave will come get some. He'll have to come in the front door because the back is blocked. I like to try to find a knife that's wider than what I'm cutting, but it's not always easy to do. So I'm going to cut right through. Oh, I can hear it break like a nice piece of pastry, which is good. And then I'll dissect it so you can see. Ooh, it's hot. I like that. All right. To serve it, I would definitely add the greens back onto it and a little parm or a little more pepper, something like that. That is what it would look like plated up. And you could use a knife and a fork, obviously, or just pick it up like a pizza. Dave, it's hot. Okay, ooh, that looks good. Okay, so life's crazy, man. It's crazy, but look, it's beautiful. And I'm gonna show you the crust up close, but you can, now you can't. So that's gorge, but all right, so here we go. This is what the bottom looks like. Okay, look how beautiful. You can see where the chunks of butter were. That's what the crust looks like up close. Okay, and you can see how it caramelized. And you have a nice sturdy crust. That's probably from using the nice stone. And this is so hot and wonderful. And then here's the crust, like a takeaway, a cutaway. Look. Look at the flake. Ooh, I think I heard Dave. Hello?
Hey.
I don't know if you guys have met Dave. Everybody, this is my husband Dave.
Who's here for the food?
You can just pick it up like a pizza. So this is my husband, Dave. Dave and I have been married 31 years. We met 32 years ago on Memorial Day weekend. Say hello.
Hello.
And Dave helps me do everything. He goes to the grocery store, he helps me with the business aspect of everything, and he moderates these. And he gives me good feedback and helps with all the data. What?
Do I eat it by hand? Or?
You can pick it up like a pizza or you can eat it with a fork. There's
Okay.
whatever you want. So I was just showing off this. So if you made this into a quiche you won't even believe how many layers end up in the quiche. But you can see the flakiness. And this is just all flavor. So if you've never had a pie or anything like this, it's baked, this lovely and dark, this is all flavor. It's all butter and protein and flavor. So if you are tempted to make this recipe and alter things and change things, I suggest you read Rose Levy Berenbaum's Pie Bible. It's amazing. And because she explains why some swaps don't work. Her cream cheese pie crust is the best out there because she balances how soft cream cheese is with things like freezing the butter. So she thinks about every ingredient, what the ingredient needs. And if you think about what your ingredients need, you'll be able to figure out how to move forward, okay? If you watch this chaos tonight, I don't work in chaos. I do one thing at a time. I plan things out. If I were doing the dessert, I would have had it in the refrigerator or the freezer and then put it in when I pulled out the Savory Galette. So there it is. This is potato, breakfast sausage, asparagus, arugula. I mean, you can have anything on your goat cheese, and it's beautiful. And even the way that I crimped it, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it looks great. And I really hope that you all give this recipe a try and let me know what you think of it in terms of comparing it to like my mealy flaky one. It's very different. Isn't that beautiful? So I just take 10X and cream and vanilla bean paste and stir it till it's the right consistency. And all I can tell you about my years and years of making this easy glaze is that you want it to be so thick that you don't think it'll stir, and just keep stirring because you need way less liquid than you could ever imagine. And now I can take this and drizzle it over my little Pop-Tart and it'll look really pretty. Yes, let me go get the book. These books are all connected. And when I talk about one person, I swear you get into it and you're like, oh, they mentioned the other person. So the book I'm talking about, and I found this when I did my stage at L'Oreal. On my very last day, Sandra said, come to my office, let me know what questions you have. And I went, and I said, do you mind if I take pictures of your bookshelf, which is a great thing to do in a chef's office. And I took pictures, and through the years, I would buy one book at a time. Breakfast, Lunch, and Tea, the Rose Bakery, the Many Little Meals of Rose Bakery. Oh, it's in London. The Violet Bakery Cookbook by Claire Patak. This is beautiful as well. It's also in London. Let's see where the frangipane is. Galette. Oh, there it is. It says Alice Waters Apple Galette. And then you get to the galette is referencing Alice Waters. So like these people are all connected, which I just think is great. Let's see, 173. This is an apple galette. So this one is called The Violet Bakery Cookbook by Claire Patak. And this is called Breakfast, Lunch, and Tea from the Rose Bakery. And these, I think, are both London bakeries. I think the biggest thing in this recipe, when you pull it off the link tree, is that you'll notice the melted butter. And that adds a creaminess and changes it. But I didn't laminate it, although you can, but I did leave the butter ridiculously big. So that is the biggest change. And I think baking it on a pizza stone or a steel is really helpful. Because if you go to one of those pizza places, you know, Napolitano style or even like any wood-fired, they put it right onto the actual brick oven part. And that heat is really what gets it all going. And that's what's happened with this. That caramelization, the color, it's not just high heat. It's the combination of it being direct underneath. To me, it's fascinating because it's like you got to get the dough right, and then you have to get it all put together right, and then you have to make sure that it's chilled and it's got to go in the oven. It's got to be baked properly. And this is a reason that a lot of people don't like baking, and there is a lot of failure. But if you take a little bit of time to plan this all out ahead of time, diagram it out, scale the recipe, maybe do 2 small batches, really think about it, put it in the refrigerator, leave it overnight, give yourself some time. Like today's Wednesday, by Saturday night, you can have this wow meal on Saturday. And and just really maybe even surprise yourself. Or maybe you're already good at this and you just got a few new tricks. So I'm going to be doing banana bread. I did banana bread for a certification exam years ago because it is foundational and it is the muffin method. So I'll be showing you the banana bread and talk about the things that I've learned, because there are many different styles, and I'm just going to start looking into all the recipes I have. So I'll see you all next Wednesday. We're going to do banana bread, and I will see you on YouTube. And if you have any questions, let me know. So the other one I put in the I put it in the refrigerator for a while, and you saw how it held its shape. And this one went straight in the oven, and look how it just melted apart. Now this will re-solidify and it will taste great, but I've lost all the shape, and then it went in an oven that was too hot at the top. So even though this will taste great and I'll be able to scrape a lot of the dark parts off the bottom of the pan, they won't impact it. It's not going to have the same effect that the Savory Galette did, but that's because I put too much in my oven. So that's kind of the reason. But this is going to stay in the oven for a little while longer. Here's a little Pop-Tart. It could probably go just another minute in there. Still a little soft. Let's take a look at the bottom. Yep, it could do a little bit longer. Yeah, so it'll still taste amazing, but it doesn't look as good as the other one. So that's why you can just remind yourself that if you do any of these projects, you can stop at any point and let it get to do what it needs to do. Chill it down or whatever. Thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate it. Whew. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you all next Wednesday. And if you need anything between now and then, just DM me or leave some comments, and I will see you on Substack, YouTube, and here on TikTok. Thank you. Thanks, POPers. I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much. Bye. All right, everyone. Have a great night. Good night.